For the first time ever in the history of the company, a WWE contracted talent wrestled. Now, wrestled, that is a key word here. Wrestled for TNA. This is not the first time a WWE contracted talent has appeared on TNA. That's a different. All right, Christian Cage came out back in the day, and obviously other people have appeared via like video, like for Slammiversary a couple years ago. AJ Styles was on and all that. So, but this is the first time that a TNA or the WWE contracted wrestler wrestled in TNA. So Tatum Paxley crossed the line. That was the make good for WWE. They sent over a WWE talent, and it was Tatum Paxley. And I think that TNA thought that was going to be a bigger deal than it ended up being, but just not a lot of people know who Tatum Paxley is. I did think that she held her own. I did think that she was like good in the match, and in fact, much better than some of the opponents that Jordynne's had lately. To be honest with you, perfectly honest with you. So I think that Tatum Paxley. I'm not a big fan of the gimmick. I feel like she's just a carbon copy of what Daphne was in WCW and in TNA. So there's not a ton of originality there, but if you're going to, she's young, and so maybe she'll make that character her own eventually. But it did seem like she was cosplaying as Daphne a bit. But yeah, she's not a big star yet. She's not a major focal point for NXT. And so when she came out, she did not really get a pop. And in fact, it was almost like silent because they're trying to figure out who it was at first. And then when it's Tatum Paxley, like, oh, okay, we figured. It was kind of one of those deals. But the way that they set it up, like they're like, oh, this is going to be this big, huge seminal moment. And it was just like, meh, okay, Tatum Paxley, she's fine. And people are shitting on it a little bit. Like I saw some people out there on the Twitter sphere and different Discord threads saying that TNA is getting screwed by WWE here. I'm just like, what? I was like, what are you guys talking about? It's like, well, they sent Jordynne Grace to NXT and she lost clean to Roxanne Perez, and all they got was Tatum Paxley. TNA got screwed. It's like, no, they didn't. What are you talking about? People are overanalyzing this way too much. And I'm sure there's going to be articles written poorly. There's going to be articles written like who's getting the most out of this. And it's like, well, can't they both get a little something, right? Can't everybody get a little something out of it? It doesn't have to be completely fair. It doesn't. And that's what we learned with the AEW partnership. And I felt like that one went south and it ended up poorly. But it doesn't have to be like completely even. But Jordynne Grace didn't get buried when she lost to Roxanne Perez. She went over there. She got more exposure than she's ever had in her life. She got to beat one of their up and coming talents, not a star, but like a jobber, basically, but Stevie Turner. She got a victory on WWE TV, and then she got to be in the co-main event, I would say, of a premium live event on Peacock, which was watched by more people than watch TNA regularly. She was positioned as a star. She looked like a star. She came across like a star. They built her up as a star. And she ended up losing, but it was a distraction finish that led to this match with Tatum Paxley. I don't like distraction finishes. Everybody knows that. I'm like, if you're just going to just have a match and just let the best person win. But I don't have any problem with this. I think TNA got exactly what they were looking for with sending Jordynne Grace over there. Jordynne Grace got more exposure. They got their name set on WWE television, and that's what they were looking for, exposure. What will that turn out to be? I don't know, but there's nothing negative that has happened. And sometimes it's okay to just do cool shit, even if it doesn't lead to like an uptick in a significant uptick in business, but you're trying stuff. And NXT and TNA are trying something right now. And I think this is the beginning of the partnership. But if it ended right now, I would say clean break, we're good. I think both sides came out pretty okay on this. Jordynne Grace got plenty of exposure, and then TNA got an NXT talent on their show. and Jordynne Grace got a clean victory. She's beaten 2 WWE stars. Stars is probably a strong word, but talents. And the one loss she had, she was dominating the match and didn't exactly get completely screwed, but she was distracted, and Roxy hit her finishing move and got the victory. But in no way did Jordynne Grace look weak. In no way has TNA looked weak. None of that happened. You guys are making that part up. You're all lying right now if you're saying that. You're a liar if you think that. It's like, or you just don't completely understand what you're talking about. But that didn't happen. You're making it up. Nobody got screwed. I think everybody, it's not completely even, but it's pretty damn close. I think everybody looks fine. Everybody looks okay. And then I think that, TNA is probably going to send somebody to the Battle Royal on NXT coming up on Tuesday night. People are thinking maybe Joe Hendry. Joe Hendry's been getting teased on, not only got teased on Raw, but he got teased on NXT. I think that is a possibility. I think Joe Hendry could go be in the Battle Royal, and they could figure out a way to get him out of the Battle Royal where he didn't look bad. No one's going to make TNA look worse. No one's going to make Joe Hendry look worse than TNA's doing right now anyway, and we'll get to that. I'll swig of coffee. But so far, the NXT TNA relationship, I'm completely fine with. I think it's working out just fine. But let's see. So Io getting on BQ, and BQ said a WWE talent won't come. Man, Io and BQ got heat all of a sudden. I'm just kidding. But yeah, that was his. But you know what? I think he kind of switched that towards the end after he got more information. So I will say. And then he said, Io says, I know folks wanted Natalya, but that's a pay-per-view caliber, in my opinion. Yeah, that if Natalya's coming over, you save that for a pay-per-view. I think Slammiversary would be perfect, but unfortunately, it looks like we're gonna get Ash, so that sucks. Yeah, and then Lucha says, I just wish Ash answered the challenge so we can get that out of the way. Yeah, me too. And Io, makes a good point. He said Jordynne controlled most of the Roxanne match. Yeah, so I think the people that are complaining about it aren't even watching. They're just watching like GIFs on Twitter. Like that's all they're doing. And Tony Khan made TNA look worse. And so look, the thing about like the Tony Khan thing, TNA did get a lot out of that. Omega led to the biggest business they had in years, and up until recently, we're not able to replicate that. Like their biggest ratings and like biggest pay-per-views, obviously hard to kill. So, surpassed it, and they actually came close a couple of times with a couple of other shows. But what happened? But Tony Khan and AEW kind of went out of the way to make like on their show, and then Tony Khan would come on to TNA and always try to and make it very clear that TNA was less than. That was the problem that I had with it. It wasn't that, we didn't get Omega losing to a TNA talent. I didn't have a problem with that. Like he lost to Christian Cage. Christian Cage is a TNA legend. Came over and he lost to Josh Alexander. I was perfectly fine with all that, especially because of the injuries that Omega had. That was perfectly fine. The only issue that I had with it is that Tony Khan went above and beyond to make TNA look less than, and he would say it. And then a part of it was a gimmick, and it never led to anything. And TNA could never get their heat back. They just had to sit there and take it, and that's TNA's fault because they allowed that to happen. They should have never agreed to it. So, and then on their show, even on AEW, like before the Rebellion match, that not only did AEW not promote it, but they didn't even want to talk about it. They didn't even mention that Omega was defending the AEW title on Impact at Rebellion against Rich Swann, and Rich Swann could be their world champion. They just never wanted to acknowledge TNA. And in fact, they never called the Impact title the World Heavyweight Championship. They just wanted to call it the Impact title. It's just little stuff like that. So it ended up not being good because the distance between AEW and TNA was so great, and AEW was very insecure, and they just wanted to let you know that at every chance they got. They never wanted to promote Impact as being something that you guys should be watching, right? That this is you know what I mean? That's just the way they were. They have been very different with their relationships with CMLL and New Japan. They have treated them like an equal partner. As far as the perception now, they're beating all their talents, but they're still talking about them like they're these big stars and stuff like that. But they never did that with Impact, because Impact, they just felt like Impact was an insignificant thing to have on their show, and it seemed like they were kind of annoyed that they were even in that relationship and that partnership. And that's not just AEW's fault; that's TNA's fault too, for not standing up for themselves.